If you've clicked on this video, you've obviously seen the title, and it can be concerning, which is throwing non-duality in the bin. I thought you loved non-duality. I do. But I want to show you something in this video regarding non-duality and devotion to a God. Are they really separate paths, or are they both leading to the same place? That's what this whole video is about. Now, I don't know whether this has happened to you yet, or I feel like it will happen eventually if you're into non-duality. It's happened to me. See if this sounds familiar, if you've been on this path for any length of time. In a safe, comfortable room, you listen to these teachings of oneness. They all make sense. It is the one appearing separate, and I am that one. Of course, be loving, be in a state of peace. It all makes sense. Next minute, what happens? After you leave that safe, comfortable room, you instantly forget all this. You're angry at people in traffic. You're annoyed at people in life. What I'm saying is, does this sound familiar? When you're listening to this stuff in a calm, peaceful room, makes sense. Also, why devote to a God? Why? It's all one anyway. I don't need to devote. It's all one. It's all love. It's all peace. But here's the real test, like I said. Can you hold on to this knowledge in day-to-day life? What I found when I first got into these teachings, in a safe, comfortable room, made sense to me. Then I'd instantly forget it, get annoyed, get angry. Over time, I've noticed I can hold on to this understanding through more and more difficult situations in life. But here's also the question. Here's where I knew that I wasn't firmly established in this knowledge. In the Bhagavad Gita, they say, an enlightened being is one of stabilized wisdom. Same in the Ashtavagra Gita, they explain how the enlightened act. Arjuna asks twice, once in chapter 2, once in chapter 14. He asks Krishna, how does the enlightened person act? And a quick rundown is equanimity, not preferring this over that. All feelings of desire, gone, which means all feelings of anger have gone. Here's the one thing you need to give up if you feel you're enlightened in a non-dual sense. You've got to give up complaining, grumbling. Even if you give it up on the surface, you appear calm, non-reactive. If internally you're still grumbling, complaining, have judgment, have desire, you're not there yet. I'm sorry. You don't have to take my word for it. This is what they're saying in the Bhagavad Gita and Ashtavakra Gita. If you want the full benefits of this realization, you need to keep putting in the work. And that's why if you get into Neo-Advaita, like I did initially, it's great. You're told the highest truth. Who is the one that's in suffering? Look for yourself, your true self. Who is the one that's in suffering? Who is the one that's desiring? Who is the one that is meditating? It's true. I came from Buddhism, and there's so much meditation in Buddhism, I started giving up meditation because of Neo-Advaita. They said, who is the one meditating? I said, good point. That's the beautiful thing about Neo-Advaita. They take you directly to the truth, but that's also its flaw. Because some of the teachers will say, that's all you need. Realize the truth. In boundless awareness, you're becoming angry. In boundless awareness, you're desiring. So you're getting a truth, but it feels half-baked. Because now what do? I still feel miserable, angry, suffering. That's where traditional Advaita Vedanta, non-duality says, yes, realize the truth, but now still perform spiritual practice to stabilize yourself in this truth. And even when we try to stabilize, why is it so hard? Do you feel like everyone else into non-duality is getting it and it all clicks easily and you're just thinking, is something wrong with me? Why is this so hard? The first thing I want to say is you're not alone. I've experienced it. Many people on the non-dual path will experience what you're going through. If you think you understand it, but I'm not getting the changes, even when I do spiritual practice, because this is the hardest path. Don't believe me? Let's go to the old Bhagavad Gita for validation. If you don't believe me, let's read the Bhagavad Gita. You'll see it here. Chapter 12, I'm going to go through verses 1 to 5. Listen to this. Arjuna inquired, between those who are steadfastly devoted to your personal form and those who worship the formless Brahman, who do you consider to be the more perfect in yoga? I'll just quickly explain. He's asking those who devote to you as God and those that are into the path of non-duality, who's more perfect? What's Krishna's reply? Verse 2, the Lord said, those who fix their minds on me and always engage in my devotion with steadfast faith, I consider them to be the best yogis. In this verse, he's saying, you know what? The path of devotion is actually better than the path of non-dual realization. Verses 3 and 4. But those who worship the formless aspect of the absolute truth, the imperishable, the indefinable, the unmanifest, the all-pervading, the unthinkable, the unchanging, the eternal, the immovable, by restraining their senses and being even-minded everywhere, such persons engaged in the welfare of all beings also attain me. In other words, you're going to get inner peace, enlightenment, salvation through devotion. What is this verse I just read saying? But if you worship me in the formless aspect, non-duality, going through this reality, seeing oneness, having an even mind, not preferring this over that, all that kind of stuff, equanimity, you're still going to attain me. But here's the catch, and here's the answer to that question that I've just brought up. Is it just me that non-duality is hard? It's very difficult. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifest, the path of realization is full of tribulations. Worship of the unmanifest is exceedingly difficult for embodied beings. Krishna is saying, you feel it's hard to understand non-duality, and once you do understand it, put these principles into action. You know why? Because it's very hard. We're very egocentric, body-centric. And why is that? In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he says exactly the same thing. In the Kali Yuga, the best form to gain enlightenment, inner peace, God, is through devotion. What is the Kali Yuga? For anyone that doesn't know the Yugas, they view reality in Hinduism as cyclical. The way to look at this is, have you ever thought, what was before the Big Bang? In science, I think there's two theories. Now, these are just theories. Who knows? I think it's called the Big Crunch or the Big Bounce. In other words, the Big Bang started, basically it came out of a singularity, it's expanding, at a certain point it's going to start contracting, go back to a singularity. Then what happens? When it's back to the singularity, another Big Bang. And then another big crunch or a big bounce. Don't grill me on these questions. My knowledge of this is very elementary, but you get the feel of it. Big bang, big crunch, big bang, expansion, contraction, cyclical. So Hinduism views cosmology like this, and they divide this reality up into 4 ages. The Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Satya Yuga is, just say you're in a time when everyone's enlightened, everyone's spiritual. You tell them, this is one appearing separate, and they're like, duh, tell me something I don't know, it's obvious. It's the one appearing separate. You're not the body. Of course I'm not the body. You know, that kind of vibe. Imagine everyone was into non-duality and spirituality. It's like a heaven, the golden age, Satya Yuga. It's the longest age in this cycle. Then it goes into the Treta Yuga, where people are still spiritual, but they're getting a little bit more worldly. Then the Dwapara Yuga, where I think spirituality and materialism are kind of 50-50. Then when you're in the Kali Yuga, it's the shortest of all the ages, but it's very heavily identified with the material world, with the body. Spirituality is of no use to most people. And look at this world, that's what we're in. And that's what Sri Ramakrishna was saying. In the Kali Yuga, your best bet is devotion, because you feel like an embodied person. This embodied person should be devoting. But that doesn't mean you have to. Like Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, you can follow the path of the unmanifest, non-duality, but it's exceedingly difficult. But if your mind is made up that way, like I felt it was, I'm very intellectual. I need to know why. That's why I was drawn to non-duality. But guess what? Ironically, I was slowly pulled into more and more devotion because it made sense to me. Just from an objective point of view, it makes sense, which I'm going to discuss further in this video. You know what this whole spiritual goal path is about? In non-duality, seeing through the illusion of ego, or in the path of devotion, humbling the ego. This is all a game between your egoic self and your true self. That's all it is. The ego gives us three things: the sense of identity, ownership, and control. Identity is perfect, no problem. It's actually required. I feel like I'm here to experience you there. This causes no harm. For us to experience requires a subject and an object. No issues, just like in a dream. In deep sleep, your mind is one and undivided. When you start dreaming, it apparently appears as a subjective dream character in a dream world. No problem. That's what the mind has to do to experience oneness. Experience separation while never actually becoming it. So the first job of the ego, give us a sense of identity. Here's where it gets sticky and messy: ownership and control. When you feel you have ownership and control, you feel like this is mine. This is my actions. These are my possessions, my family. My actions, I did it. These are my actions. I'm so proud. I'm so arrogant. Oh, these are my actions. I'm so guilty, shameful. When it's yourself. Pride, arrogance, guilt, and shame. When you freely think these are my actions and my will, what about others? Jealousy, envy, hatred. See how all these negative qualities, when we think we have ownership and control and others do, breed feelings of desire, anger, control. The ego is the devil. In Christianity, they project God and the devil outwardly, and they're both vying for your attention. In Hinduism and Eastern philosophy as a whole, even in Buddhism, it's all an inward path. God is in you and the devil is in you. God is your true self, the devil is your egoic self. So this whole path, this whole game of spirituality is just stop seeing reality through the lens of ego, the devil, ownership and control. Start seeing it through your true self. And if you're into non-duality, if you see through the illusion of identity, you're simultaneously seeing through the illusion of control. Works good in theory. Once you intellectually understand it, cool. But how are you going to live in this world? Once you thought you were a wave, a separate wave in the ocean, once the wave that you are realizes it's the ocean, what ownership and control do you have? It's all water. So how would the non-dual enlightened person act? Not preferring this over that. It's all water, isn't it? Why do you prefer this water but not that water? Why are you jealous of the big wave and feel better than the small wave? It's all water, isn't it? But why is this exceedingly difficult? As Krishna is saying, and Sri Ramakrishna? Because we're in the Kali Yuga. We're very heavily identified with the body, which is making this very hard for us. So if the whole game is seeing through the illusion of identity and control, what about the path of devotion? That's doing exactly the same thing. You get to keep your identity. I'm this person. And as this person, I'm going to devote to a God. And what is God ultimately wanting us to do? Give up ownership and control. Without needing to do all this intellectual knowledge. What is the path of devotion ultimately doing? It's the path of love, surrender. Saying, God, this is your world. I didn't create this world, these people, this body, the food that sustains this body, these thoughts, all yours, God. Also your will. God will say, you've got free will, but ultimately everything's happening according to God's will. You want to steer the car left, God wants to steer the car left, so the car goes left. You want to steer the car right, that's your free will. God wants to steer the car left, so you're going to go left. In other words, if you've got free will, but at the end of the day, everything's happening according to God's will, the only option, freely take that free will and offer it up to God. Say, God, you've given me free will. I've tried it my way. It's not working. So can I just freely give this back to you? Let you run the show. I love you. I trust you. I surrender to you. You run the show. It's your world anyway. See what's happening there to the ego. Ownership and control is being surrendered. Through the path of devotion, path of knowledge, ownership and control is seen as an illusion. It's the same effect. That's where your inner peace is coming from. Giving up ownership and control. In deep sleep, there's a state of peace. Why? Because there's no ownership and control. That's what's troubling us. Thoughts of shoulda, coulda, woulda, I'm better, they're worse, I'm judging them, I'm hating them. Ego creates all this mess. Ultimately, ego is not bad. Like I said, it gives you the miracle of experience. Once you see through the illusion of ego, you can still devote to a God. That's another beautiful thing. If you devote to a God and think you're truly separate, it's a beautiful relationship, no doubt. But what makes it even more beautiful? When there still appears to be separation, but you know it's not really separate. That means you and God are never separate. It just appears separate, and it's such a loving relationship. It's even more loving because you know the fabric of you and God is one. You're just playing different roles. And that's why I heavily recommend devotion. And another thing I'd like to mention, like I mentioned at the start, when life is going well, in fact, when life is going materialistically well, this is why I feel, this is my theory, why people in Western culture have given up on religion, because life is good. Especially in Australia, life is good. What do we need God for? We don't need to pray for blessings. We have a good life. We don't need God for morality. We know what right and wrong is. What do we need God for? What people in most Western cultures need God for is the feeling of emptiness. I've got everything, everything's going well, but something's missing. You know what's missing? God. Or realizing your true self. And not everyone in Australia is so blessed. It's actually getting harder, actually, by the way. What's the other type of person that needs a God? And why do most people in poorer countries devote to a God? Because it helps with suffering. When life is miserable, you need hope. You need devotion. So that's my theory. When life gets well materialistically, if you don't love a God, you're going to think, what's the point of God? Because your mindset will be, I'll only bring God into my life if it gives me, I'll pray for something. I'll use God to fulfill my wishes. Give me this, God. Give me that. Which is perfectly fine. I pray for blessings, usually for other people. But for myself personally, I just pray for the strength to get through any problems. I say to God, I'm surrendering my body to you. I'm surrendering my thoughts, feelings, and actions to you. I just tell God, use my body as an instrument of good, of love. That's all I ask for. Give me the strength to get through issues. Use my body as an instrument for good, to help others. That's all I pray for. And for my loved ones, if they're going through hard times, I pray for them. Pray that they are healed, get better, are successful. But ultimately, true devotion is saying, I just love you so much, God. I'm just here for you. You know, when you truly, truly love someone, if you do now or have in the past, or if you haven't, this is what true love feels like. If you've never experienced this, you want to serve. You do it out of a sense of love. It's not about you, it's about them. Selfless service. So if you truly love God and see God in every experience, you want to serve God in all these forms. That's the highest level of devotion. Also, you realize with all this selfless service and love, you and God are one. You get the non-dual realization, ultimately, through devoting. So that's why this path is beautiful. If you start off with a non-dual preference, you're going to get enlightenment in the end. If you go down that arduous path. The non-dual path without a God is very hard, but it can be done. Krishna is saying it in the Bhagavad Gita. But if it's not for you, or if you kind of like it but still have a bit of devotion like me, I can see. I love non-duality. It gave me the reason why to devote. Because I grew up a Christian and thought, why be loving? Why be this? Why be that? I know now why. Because reality is one and undivided. So of course, show love, understanding, compassion, operate from the root of love. And when times get tough and you feel scared or don't know what to do, what's the harm in devoting? It doesn't contradict non-duality. You call on the mechanic when your car breaks down. It's a non-dual reality. Why are you doing that? You call on the electrician, the plumber. Why? What's wrong with calling on a God? It's the one appearing separate, but we're all playing separate roles. So submit this ego to a higher power. You don't have to, but it's going to bring so much more peace and happiness to your spiritual path, if you're so inclined. That's what I found. But to summarize this video, guys, there's two main paths in Hinduism, the path of knowledge and path of devotion. It's all leading to the same end. And if you are very strict with your non-dual concepts, just know it doesn't contradict. Even Sri Ramakrishna said this. In the path of knowledge, the jnani, the person of wisdom, says, all is Brahman, that's the highest truth. People that are devoting, that's good and all, but they're ultimately on the path to realize this highest truth. That's what the jnani says, the person of knowledge. But Sri Ramakrishna also said, there is something called a vijnani, which is even higher. You know what that is? The vijnani realizes, in truth, there is no higher and lower. See, non-duality will say, non-dual realization is the highest truth. The vijnani will say, in reality, there is no higher and lower. And Sri Ramakrishna summed this up beautifully by saying, when you walk up the steps of a house and get to the roof and look back down, you realize the steps were made of concrete. The walls were made of concrete. The roof is made of concrete. It's concrete through and through. In other words, in the highest non-dual truth, there is no higher and lower. There is only truth. If reality was made of water, if that was the nature of reality, you have a Christian whirlpool made of truth, Islamic whirlpool made of truth, a non-dual whirlpool made of truth. It's truth through and through. Reality is one and undivided. If that reality takes on the form of you devoting to a God, truth. If that reality takes on the form of reality is one without a second, I'm a non-dualist, truth. If reality takes on the form of I'm an atheist, what God? This is all nonsense. Truth. The fabric is truth. That's what Sri Ramakrishna was saying. The vijnani's highest realization is that. And again, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 11. I should get a tattoo. I've got so many tattoos, that should be another one. However my devotees approach me, I approach them in the same way. Everyone is following my path knowingly or unknowingly. Whatever you think and feel about this reality, it's made of truth and it is true for you. What more can you say? So pick your preference. You don't have to be devotional, but don't get scared of devotion. It's not contradicting non-duality. That's all I'm saying. And that's all I've found. So as always, guys, hope it helps. Take care.